share. So I'd like to know if that is possible at all to charge by weight. And was there any results for Parsippany's fair share housing number? Has that been finally determined? And one last question. How did the $3.7 million that we got stuck paying RD Developer for that buffer zone called open space, how did that affect our open space fund budget or our budget overall? I'd like to know the answer to that, because that's quite a bit of money.
30 seconds.
And if you could remember the questions I asked, I'd appreciate it. But really, we need somebody, we need like a diplomat from the mayor's office up there to go walking around and looking at this property every now and then, like an overseer or inspector general to show up every now and then. Because, like I said, there's not a community up there. It's supposed to be a community, but everybody's in their own bubble. So, you know, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nick, when I received your email, as the other council members did, in regard to the garbage that was by a bar and their parking lot, I went there several days, and over a period of a few days, they did clean it up. So due to your diligence, it was cleaned up. So
That place is you got to keep your eye on it all the time. You need an eagle circle on over it.
Nick, I also checked into that. Unfortunately, there are other people that are not associated with the bar that are putting garbage on their property. So that's the problem.
I know
'Cause
where some of it's coming from.
Right, but I've spoken to the owner there, and you know, the apartment complex. There's people driving in. You know, he has told me that there's been abandoned cars left in his lot. There's been, you know, major pieces of garbage that have just been thrown into his property that, you know, he has nothing to do with.
You tell him he could pay me minimum wage and I'll clean his parking lot once a week.
You know, it's 15 bucks an hour.
Can I just say also, we talked about this, I think, last year, and we were talking about taking some action on Beverwick, so maybe we could look into that again.
We can do that.
Yeah.
My name is Bob Venezia. I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. And there were, I know it's early in the budget process, but there were a few things that I heard tonight that I feel are disturbing. And some of them are in the form of questions that I'd like you to answer, please. One is, how is it possible in the age of a 2% cap that we're negotiating 7% increases for policemen? I mean, who's negotiating for us? I mean, you know, it's a budget buster. Regarding open spaces, I would say it was only about 3 years ago that we had the prior administration ask to have an increased amount of the open space dedicated to maintaining parks, fields, things that were purchased with open space. Now we're increasing it again. I feel, you know, we're using this open space, more and more of it. I mean, now, I don't know if we can use the whole thing now for maintenance. Basically, what we're using it is as an end around to get around a 2% cap. We're using it for things that normally used to be done in the budget. Next thing, you know, there was the increase in the amount of ratables was $40 million. And that, you know, that was a big deal. And it said it might not happen again. Well, we got one project that we can't talk about that's worth $200 million, like 5 times that amount. So, and if, you know, if that were taxed as a ratable, you know, our ratables would go up 5 times what they're going up this year. And along those lines, where in the budget is this money from pilots? Where is it? Where is it showing up? Where is it going to? How does it reduce our taxes? Next thing, water and sewer adjustments. We heard that the amount of surplus that we should have in our current budget is it's recommended to be 10 to 15%. Well, we're running surpluses in our water and sewer of around 50%, and you're asking for more than that, 2% more each year. I mean, when you get down below the 10 to 15% surplus, then let's talk about the 2% then. I think I don't see the need for it. I mean, you're anticipating something that may not happen, and under the way it is today, we're in really good shape. And the last thing is the 0% tax increase that we had a couple of years ago. I would say this would be the last. We heard that it could take 4 years to recover from this. No, that's not acceptable. We've already, if we assess if this 4.72% increase goes through today or on this budget, that's recovering it in 1 year. I mean, if you had a 2% increase instead of the 0, if you had a 2 and a 2, that's 4%. We're doing 4.72 in 1 year. So I mean, after this year, I don't want to hear any more about how we need to recover from prior administration. You've done that. The budget is yours now. Thank you.
Bob, let me just say that we were just given the budget books tonight, so as far as the council, this was the first time that we've heard this presentation. We haven't had a chance to even look at anything yet, so nothing's final. We've
All right,
just
well,
shown this today.
I'm just planting a seed.
Through you, Council President, if I could just address a couple
Go
of
ahead.
those issues. First of all, Bob, with regard to the 2% cap, you're correct. When I talk about the police salaries and wages increase, their negotiated increase for cost of living in 2019 is 2%. But when you combine that with the step guide that's built into their contract, with longevity payments, with education payments, and all the other ancillary benefits that a police officer receives, that combined total equates to the 7% that I discussed in the presentation.
There was not all salaries. There was not all salaries.
It was salaries and wages. Yeah. Open space. There's no proposal by the administration to increase the amount that's collected for open space. It's a reallocation of what it can be used for, rather than purchase of acquiring open space for preservation. It would be used for park development and to support recreation in open space areas. With regard to the ratables, I can tell you that we will not regenerate $40 million in ratables in 20 or 21. That's a fact. This happened because of new development. It happened because our tax assessor was aggressive this year in going out and making sure that especially our commercial office buildings were assessed properly based on occupancy and other factors. With regard to Stanberry, there is no calculation for that in the 2019 budget. Likely there may not even be for 2020, although don't hold me to that, because quite frankly it's not been approved yet. So I can't plan on that until the council takes action and the developer starts their project, if that comes to pass. With regard to capital and utilities, with that I respectfully disagree with you. The bottom line is that, as I pointed out in the slide presentation, there was a time we were using nothing. Then there was a time we were using a little more than $500,000 to offset the current fund. We've now become reliant on sewer of taking $2.5 million from that in order to move it over. The better budgeting practice, as I said in the presentation, is to use the capital fund to pay cash for infrastructure projects on an aging sewer and water system in the township. That's what we should be doing, rather than incurring additional debt and having to pay interest on that debt. So that's the spending plan that I would like to see, considered and put together here in Parsippany. And with regard to the 0%, you brought it up, I didn't. There is a compounding factor to that. Yes, we have the cap capacity to present the proposal that we did tonight to the mayor and to the council, but at the same time, there's a compounding factor. Because if there were 7% raises and 3.5% raises and 2% raises in that 2017 budget, that all compounds when you deliver a zero tax increase. So we have to look forward. We can't look back. I think that this budget is a responsible spending plan for the township to put ourselves one step further onto a path for fiscal health. Thank you, Councilman.
Keith, Mr. Venezia said, did I misunderstand the slide about the health of our budget surplus for the sewer? Because I read that as we are half of where we should be.
We were half of what we were.
Where are we
were in
within
2012. We had a $15 million surplus.
Right.
We now have a $7.6 or $7.8 million surplus.
But the recommendation
But
of
we're also taking, keep in mind, we're taking 2.25 and applying that to offset based on the presentation that was made this evening.
but that 10 to 15% recommendation based on the town's budget, we're below the recommended.
That's on the current fund. It has
Correct.
nothing to do with the utilities, put the utilities aside. But we're using utility surplus to offset the tax increase because our current fund surplus is not in the best fiscal health based on industry standards.
And that sewer surplus is below the 10% recommended,
Correct.
not healthy.
Correct.
Thank you.
I didn't do the calculations on the percentage in the utilities, but we can do that and get that to you.
And so then what you're saying is we really should be using those reserves to pay for the sewer utility, any
Correct.
work that needs to be done there. Instead, we're borrowing, which is
Right.
compounding.
If we didn't have to
Guys,
transfer this,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to ask the council members when they speak to speak into the mics, only because they're having difficulty
if
hearing
we
you in the
didn't
back.
have to transfer these balances from the sewer and water utility over to offset the current fund, we would be in a better position to pay for some of these very expensive infrastructure improvements that need to be made in the township. Water lines, sewer lines, water towers, pump stations. We'd essentially be able to pay for a portion of that in cash without taking on additional debt service and having to pay the interest over the life of the bond.
Yeah, that was my point, that we're really compounding it by going out and paying the debt service.
That's
as well,
correct.
Accumulating. the-
McCarthy, I just need you to speak up
Thank
when
you,
you
Council
speak into the mic.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry.
it's okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Andy Chaffo. I live at 5 Glenbrook Drive. I'm a school board member, and full disclosure, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Board of Education this evening. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a resident of the town. Being a board member since 2005, I do understand your pain about balancing the needs of the community with these are the taxpayers. And I am not against growth. However, I do want to talk about the pilot program, or the payment in lieu of taxes, which for any body that generates revenue to fund whatever it does, like a municipal government or a school board, should be very cautious. Just the name alone should really make you think about a development, especially one that has a residential component where people will be using services such as public safety, water, sewer, education. In my opinion, any development that has a residential component that is under the scheme of the pilot is a bad deal for the municipality. Full stop. And I'll just highlight an example. I'm not a mathematician, so I'm going to use simple numbers. If these developments generate school-age children who come to school in Parsippany, and they are
Hold on a minute. I don't want to cut you off.
yeah.
We were going to reserve comments in reference to the pilot and that development for when we get to that in the meeting.
I'm happy to come back.
All right. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. I could do my whole introduction again too, which is
No,
great.
you just picked up an extra minute.
Lou Valori, 36 Gathering Hill Court. How's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully okay. It's not a tough question. In regards to the, I guess the fee that's going to be charged for the school district, was it $75,000, $72,000 for the garbage pickup?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, in the near future, if the schools have any events for the town that's going to be utilized by the town on school property? Are they going to be charging the town for using their fields for the fireworks or any types of events? Because the reason I'm asking this is that, is a fee really necessary if there's going to be other events going to be used at the school through the town, through the fireworks or any other events that go on the school property? So is it like, are we kind of voiding each other out? Is that charge really worth it while there's other events I'm sure the town's going to be using in the near future? Being a councilman in the past and a former board member, I just think that we're supposed to be working with each other with a shared service, and you're almost going tit for tat in regards to, you're charging them for garbage, and I'm sure if they want, if you're using their field for fireworks, they could charge you a whole slew of money, or what other events. So I think you guys should really sit down and try to work that out for the taxpayers. That's all. Thank
Mr.
you.
Valori, if I can just ask you to sign in.
Yes, sorry about that.
I agree with Lou Valori. I was gonna wait till a budget session to bring this up, but maybe we should do an analysis to see the net cost of services we provide to the school board and the net cost of services they provide to the township, and see if there's some kind of a balance. Because Lou's got a good point. I was gonna bring it up during the budget. If we start charging them for things that we're doing for them now, they're gonna start charging us. And where does that end? And we're affecting the same taxpayers either way. So if our services to them and their services to us come close to balancing, then I don't see any reason to change it.
Through you, Council President, I've started to ask the department heads to do exactly that and to quantify what services their particular departments provide to the Board of Education. We have a tremendous partnership, from my perspective, with the Board of Education. I have a direct line in communication with Dr. Sargent. I know Andy Miller, our Chief of Police, can say the same. They've sat down and negotiated resources for both school resource officers, also for special Class 3 police officers. There's a cost-sharing effort that goes along with that. Parks and Forestry is out there working with the school district. We provide the Border Collie for geese services at the Board of Education. Greg Schneider has reported to me that we partner with them on snow removal and salt distribution and all of those things. So we're in the process of conducting that analysis. The one thing I will say is that the recommendation to pass along the disposal costs of solid waste to the Board of Education came out of notes that I reviewed from last year's budget discussions. So that's where that recommendation came. I spoke to the mayor about it. I know there were council members sitting on the dais this evening last year who were in favor of passing along those costs, but I certainly think it's worth a discussion during this year's budget process. Thank you.
Nancy Chaffo, 5 Glenbrook Drive. One of the suggestions I would make is that, being we're all sitting here, is that you have some printed copies of the budget proposal, so while we're sitting here, we can also review it at our desk, at our tables, and look and see what notes we want to make on them. We've been paying for the school's garbage for over 15 years, so my township taxes includes that pickup. Now you want me to continue to pay in the township amount and cut into the school's budget of 2%, while you raise our taxes another 4.2%. You're telling me that it's the same thing because I'm still paying the taxes, but however, I don't know how many people realize this, but my school's taxes are collected by the township that go to the state. I don't get all of my taxes back from the state. So when I pay for garbage pickup from our town, I'm paying the taxes and you're picking up the garbage. The school budget would have to increase a lot more just to make up the money we have to pay for the garbage pickup. You're taking the money right from a classroom. And then you're adding the burden of more children to the district, which children are never supposed to be a burden, but when you have contractors developing all this developments and not contributing to the town, it is a burden. Also, have you ever thought about cutting the spending in our town instead of increasing our taxes? We keep getting these tax increases, and I don't see any cutting in the spending at all. You've increased our payroll by hiring more employees. Maybe we have to work a little bit longer hours like everyone else and work from home a little bit, but we need to cut the spending in this town, and starting with the employees, which contributes a lot to most of the budget. When you have small local town hall meetings at the schools, like the master plan meeting at the Parr Hills, did you pay the Board of Education for the use of space? I would like to know if you paid the Board of Education for the use of space there, because when people come to meetings like that, they use our garbage cans, and they throw out garbage. And now we'll be charged to pick up your garbage when you have meetings at our schools. So I would like to know if those meetings are a part of this new budget also. The ones that you have at the schools, if they're going to be part of this budget, I'd like to know that so we could offset the garbage amount that we will charge back to you to pay for it. Thank you.
We will
Ms.
charge
Chappell?
to you. Are you representing the Board of Education? I'm sorry, you said we will charge to you?
Well, you're charging us $70,000+.
So you're here representing the Board of Education?
No, I'm here representing my tax dollars.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Council President, if I could just make a clarifying statement on that. Ms. Chaffo, it's lost on me, your reference, and I actually was presented by an employee here looking for some clarification on something that was posted on social media that alluded to the same. The tax dollars that are collected here by the township on behalf of the Board of Education, by the way, by our employees, and then we in turn cut a check to the Board of Education, never go to the state of New Jersey. And I've heard you now mention it twice in a public hearing, and I know you posted it on social media too. Whether you're talking about income tax revenue that you pay through your income tax to the state that you don't get back, that I can't speak to. But I can speak to the fact that we cut a check after we collect those tax dollars on behalf of the Parsippany-Troy Hills School District, and we cut that check directly to the Board of Education from the township's bank account. So the money going to the state, I'm not clear on. The other thing I want to say is that if we are looking to cut spending to the point where we would actually get down to the 2% cap, I can say to you with utter certainty that we would be talking about layoffs. And the mayor, when he asked me to work with our CFO, Ann Cucci, to prepare this year's spending plan, he was clear to me that he did not have any intentions this year of having to lay off any employees here at the township in any wholesale way. So that was a directive that was strongly taken into consideration. We could nickel and dime this budget. I'm sure, some people will, again, a spending plan like this is priorities. Everybody's going to have a different set of priorities. Everybody to my right is going to have a different set of priorities. They'll get to decide what they think should be cut, what they don't. That's what the statute allows for the council to do in this form of government. But at the end of the day, if you're looking to get to 2%, I can tell you that in my professional opinion, we will be talking about layoffs. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
My name is Stephen Roman, R-O-M-A-N, and I live at 4 Spencer Court in the Glacier Hill section of Parsippany. I have to ask that I cannot sign. I'm a disabled veteran. I can't write standing up. So I think...
It's not a problem, Mr. Roman.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about 3 issues. The first issue is an annoyance. I called City Hall 5 times last week and never got a live person. It went into the, if you know your extension, blah, 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 and that's fine. But every single time that I pushed for the operator, it went to the mayor's hotline, and that was another recording there. We have more people in town hall than we've ever had before. Maybe a live person might pick up the phone. That's a personal thing. Number 2, so happy to see over where I live major road projects, new curbing, new paving, makes the area look beautiful. The street I live on, over 40 years ago, we put sewers in. We had to pay for them. $10,000 was my fee. But we were assured that new curbing would be put in. Unfortunately, it was never done. And what curbing is there now is deteriorating to the point where it's unsafe. Maybe someone could come over and take a look at it. Again, a personal thing. Next, I want to address the mayor and Mr. Kosmark. Mr. Mayor, when you ran for office, you told us you were going to bring change to Parsippany. You were going to change it. You were going to make it better. 4.75% increase in taxes is far from better to me, okay? We have the town council, 2 Democratic members. You keep charging 4.75, and you really earn the Democratic label of a tax and spend mayor. I speak for myself now. Under President Obama, we got a 3.9% increase in Social Security in 9 years. You want to increase our taxes 4.75%. Where do you think senior citizens are going to get that money from? Unless you have a machine that prints it, I don't. So when you sit there smugly telling us how these are the best things for Parsippany, tell us what's best for the taxpayers of Parsippany. Don't tell us what you think is best. Tell people who can't afford it, the senior citizens in this town, those people who are on fixed incomes, those people who don't have the luxury of living in Upper Saddle River in a $5 million mansion. We live in our modest homes here in Parsippany. So when you come here and tell us about how you've worked so hard, oh no, Mr. Mayor is a good union man who's used to negotiating contracts. Put a double number in there, we want 8%, but we really want 4%. Let's get real. Get the axe out, start cutting, and make the town affordable. Not only are you saying the town is in bad shape now, but next year, oh, we got to raise the 10%. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't think that's the change that you ran on, was it?
Mr. Roman,
To
1
price
minute.
people out of town. Thank you.
Through you, Council President, Mr. Roman, I grew up in a modest Cape Cod house on Williams Drive in Woodland Park, New Jersey. My father was a sock salesman. My late mother was a secretary. I ran for office at 23 years old, and not one budget have I voted on in that town, prepared in Elmwood Park, or prepared here tonight in Parsippany, where I did not have the taxpayer of the town I was working for as the first priority. So you can come up to the microphone, respectfully, sir, and you can, it's my turn, with all due respect, and you can grandstand about tax increases and so on and so forth. But the financial picture that I inherited on October 1st was not created overnight. It did not start on January 1st of 2018. If you believe that these things happen year by year, sir, you're mistaken. This is a compounded situation that has occurred by utilizing funding from utilities to offset tax increases. If we do not reverse that course, which started way back when, we will not have the funding to offset the budget in 4 or 5 years. That, sir, is a fact. That practice was not started by this administration. It didn't start when the man to my left got here on January 1st of last year. It didn't start when I arrived here on October 1st of last year. It started many moons ago. And I'm telling you, with all due respect, for the health and welfare of Parsippany-Troy Hills, New Jersey, we need to reverse those budgeting practices in order to put the current fund, which operates every department except 3, into better fiscal health. So while I appreciate your comments about cutting the budget, I can tell you that when we first started this process, it was a 10% increase. And for those employees who it's been inferred need to work here late, my staff was here till 3 o'clock in the morning last week in preparation of this budget. If you ever see Ann Gainey in the hallway, you should thank her. Not an ounce of overtime, not an ounce of comp time given to her. Ann Cucci's here every weekend, mulling over this budget to make the absolute best budget that we could have presented tonight. So I appreciate your suggestion of cutting. I can tell you we have. That slide, which by the way, Ms. Chaffo, this presentation will be online tomorrow morning, but I didn't think it was fair to show it to the public before I showed it to the council. But I will tell you right now, sir, it's all with good intentions to sit here and say you can cut, but those mandatory costs, which is north of 80% of this budget, they can't be cut. I can't tell the state that I'm not paying the pension bill. I can't tell the United States government that I'm not paying the Social Security bill. I can't tell the police officers and the blue-collar workers who I have binding contracts with that I'm not paying what was promised. So 16% of the increases are discretionary. We could take money from the white-collar employees and not give them their 2%, the same employee who stayed here till 3 o'clock in the morning. We can make the decision not to do a TNR program, not to give the daycare center $10,400. We can make those decisions, and we will, and the council will. That's why we have budget hearings. That's why they'll prepare their budget for introduction, hopefully in March. And you'll have another opportunity to come before us. But, sir, with all due respect, never believe that I came to this job not thinking about the taxpayers that hired me first and foremost in my mind.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. Tim Berrios, 24 Farmstead Drive. I am a Parsippany-Troy Hills Board of Education member, and I stand in front of you as the liaison to the town council meetings. And I just wanted to come up here and just make sure I set the record straight on a couple of items that came up just recently. First of all, is an invite to everyone that we are in the beginning processes of our budget process. That is all held publicly, and everyone is invited to attend these public sessions, which starts probably the next month and will end sometime in April. I just wanted to also state that as also a member of the Finance Committee, having sat through a few of these budgeting processes and having spent some time in the wee hours of the morning, I can absolutely stand in front of you and the public and let you know that not every dollar of your taxes to the Board of Education goes to the Board of Education. There is no misunderstanding, there is no gray area. If I remember correctly, according to our business administrator, it probably is in the area of 55 to 65% on the dollar. Now that I will definitely clarify officially from the next time I'm here. But please misunderstand that not every dollar that leaves Parsippany, I don't care how it gets transferred, whether it's a check, an EFT, or it's hand-delivered, it does not get back into the school systems. So we do not put that money back in the school systems because we can't. We are living also under a 2% cap, just like everybody else is. So we are negotiating within very strict parameters with our own statutory costs. Just wanted to make sure I passed that along. Thank you.
Mr. Berrios, if I can ask you to please sign in. I did. Oh, you did? Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, see no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public?
Motion.
Nope.
No, I think we have somebody, Council President.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, my name is Srini. Good evening, sir. My name is Srini Ida. And,
Sir, could you just speak
Can you
into
just
the
speak into the mic?
My name is Srini Ida. I live in Lake Hiawatha, and I've been here like last 12 years.
Sir, I need you. I'm sorry. I apologize. I need you to speak up.
People in the back can't hear you.
Yeah. Today I'm representing through Seva International non-profit organization, and the reason I'm here is to put a question. This year we want to do some volunteer work for Parsippany town for part of the Earth Day to involve some. We already have a program running, so there are like 40-50 kids, like the high school kids. They're all part of the volunteer group, and I want to put the kids for a program to clean up our streets, and we're already doing some work in this year. We did the work for Route 46, like the Adopt Highway program. We've been cleaning last year and before last year, and I want to expand that program and adopt the Clean Up Street program and introduce for this Earth Day. So the question is there something I need to take permission here for that activity?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your generous offer.
We put you in touch with Mr. Homyak over there. I'm sure he's got some areas.
But I would like to direct you to our public information officer. Please give him your phone number, and
sure.
we'd like to reach out to you and talk. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, if I can ask you to please sign in.
He did.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry. I'm sorry tonight. There's a lot of people, so please forgive me, guys, if I ask, and you guys have already done it. Forgive me in advance.
Okay, so no one else come forward. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Okay, Mr. DePiero?
Ordinance 2019:02. Bond ordinance providing for various road and sidewalk improvements in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $3,570,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $3,391,500 bonds or notes of the Township to finance part of the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on February 19, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on March 19th, 2019
19.
at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes. And going with the next couple ordinances, there's a typo. March 19 is supposed to say 2019, not 2018.
Ordinance 2019:03, bond ordinance providing for the primary scum pump rehabilitation at the sewer utility in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $300,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $300,000 in bonds or notes of the Township to finance the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at a meeting of the Town Council at the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on February 19th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for a second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on March 19th, 2019 at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building and in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given the opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. Peterson?
Ordinance 2019-04, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, creating new Chapter 125 of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills to establish a permanent requirement to operate a crane in the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on February 19th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on March 19th, 2019 at 7 p.m., prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. Grignani?
Council President, if I may, before I read this ordinance, I was informed that there were inquiries to our township from Parsippany residents working as federal employees during the budget impasse. They were concerned about interest charged on property taxes being paid late. The resolution I asked Mr. Lott to prepare is a result of a bill passed waiving delinquent property taxes. It is effective immediately and is retroactive to December 2000.
We're on page 4, 2019:05.
I
You're referring
apologize.
to a future.
I apologize. I'm getting ahead of myself. Ordinance 2019:05, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 346, Snow and Ice Removal, of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills to impose a fine for violators. It is resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on February 19th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on March 19th, 2019 at 7 p.m., prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the meeting may be reached, at the municipal building in the said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
DePiero?
Ordinance 2019:01. This is ordinance for second reading. Ordinance of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with the district at 1515 Urban Renewal LLC and granting a tax exemption with respect to that certain property identified as Block 200, Lot 1.2. Notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on February 11, 2019. This ordinance was introduced at the February 5th, 2019 agenda meeting. Motion to accept that ordinance 2019:01 be heard in its second and final reading by title only.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Council President,
Okay,
before
before
you
we-
open the
Go
hearing
ahead.
to the public, I have some comments that I've been asked to relay to the public with regard to the Stanberry Development LLC located at 1515 Route 10. There have been a number of correspondences that have been circulated here in the Parsippany community over the last number of days, and also posts on social media, many of which have been brought to either elected officials in the community or to my office for inquiry and clarification. First, I want to begin by saying that the Stanberry file, which was left to me by my predecessor, dates back to 2015. There is correspondence going back to that site on Route 10, which was earmarked later by the Planning Board as an area in need of redevelopment, and discussion of the pilot program dating back to April 3rd of 2015, with subsequent correspondence right up until today. There have been insinuations within the community that this is a tremendous tax burden on the citizens of Parsippany. While I'm not here to set policy, that is the job of those that you elected, I am here to provide facts. And pilots can be very controversial. There obviously needs to be sensitivity to the fact that the way the state of New Jersey structures pilot programs, the lion's share of the tax revenue that's generated through a pilot is sent to the municipality rather than the school district. But I do want to stress that if the current office building became occupied by today's standards, over the next 30 years, that office complex would generate for Parsippany and the county and the Board of Education approximately $7 million in tax revenue. Under the pilot, $61 million over the next 30 years will be generated for the municipality with a portion to the county. Granted, the school board does not reap the benefit in any pilot program, but the administration has made a conscious decision that should this ordinance be adopted tonight, and should the Stanberry project proceed, that the administration will sit down with the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools.
With the support of the council.
With the support of the council. Thank you, Councilman. That's why I have the veteran to my right. With the support of the council, to structure a program where on a per student basis, children who live in the Stanberry community and attend the public schools here in Parsippany, that the Board of Education will be compensated on a per pupil student payment plan. This is being done in neighboring Denville. There is also a model for this in Woodbridge Township in Middlesex County. So the accusation or the insinuation that this is a tremendous tax burden is somewhat unfounded. There's also been information dispensed to the community that this will have a tremendous cost on services. In fact, through the negotiation with the developer will waive reimbursement from the Kelly Act, which is also known as the Municipal Services Act. This is where the municipality is responsible for reimbursing a condominium development for the cost of snow removal, street lighting, and trash and recycling collection. By way of example, the Mountain Club complex here in Parsippany, with 702 units, receives an approximate annual reimbursement of well over $100,000. Hunting Ridge, which has 208 units, receives nearly $30,000 in reimbursements, and that's on a year-by-year basis. With regard to additional traffic on Route 10, anyone who has looked over the Stanberry plan will see that the developer has agreed to do off-site road improvements to reduce the traffic coming from any development at that location off of Route 10 and directly on to Dryden Way. Keep in mind, this is also why the developer has approached the Morris County Improvement Authority for the RAB for funding for those off-site public, I stress public, road improvements.
Mr. Casmore, I don't want to interrupt you, but also those road improvements not only would take traffic off of Route 10,
Correct.
would also take traffic off of Route 202, where
That is
people would
correct.
have to come on to 202 to turn around.
There you go. That's phase one. And that, by the way, that it has been negotiated into phase one of the project rather than the latter part, thanks to the more recent negotiations. With regard to the amount of units, it currently stands at 441 units. We were notified as a township on January 28th, 2019, by way of a letter written from the law firm of Day Pitney, who represents Stanberry, with a carbon copy to the special master appointed by the Superior Court here in Morris County, that they were moving to become an intervening party on our affordable housing litigation. They subsequently met with the administration and presented plans for over 800 units with no road improvements, no waivering of the Kelly Act, larger apartments, and quite frankly, no retail space at that location.
Also, can you state how many more school children? I know we were shown something, I believe it's 25 school children with the current project. It's well over, it's close to about 150 was the projection.
Correct.
If it was the 800 apartments.
I don't have those numbers at my fingertips.
I know we were showing
I
something.
think it was actually 32 on the original plan and north of 100 with the 800 units. There is a real concern amongst the administration, and I think the council shares this, I don't want to speak for them, that if this ordinance does not pass tonight, that the representatives from Stanberry and their attorney from Day Pitney will formally file litigation in Superior Court. Unfortunately, and this is not just in Parsippany, this is every municipality in the state of New Jersey, is subject to a builder's remedy lawsuit. Now let me explain this to the public here in Parsippany. The courts do not care about additional school children, about additional traffic, about lack of sewer, about lack of water. All they care about is having to meet the affordable housing mandate on a suitable piece of property. I am not a judge, I am not an attorney, but I have personally experienced in the community I represent a judge rule that an apartment complex that had no business being built in the place that it was be mandated to be built in order to meet the affordable housing obligation of my community. I believe that based on Stanberry's efforts to build here in Parsippany, dating back to early 2015, that any judge that this goes before will approve those 800 units as the alternate to what's being presented before the council tonight. I have spoken extensively with the township attorney. I have spoken extensively with Ms. London, who represents us on our affordable housing obligation lawsuit. And I can tell you without question that if this is not approved, you will see 800 units built on Route 10 at 1515. The other factor that I think needs to be taken into serious consideration is that we have had a visit from another developer within, Council President, about a quarter of a mile of this site, who intends to come either for rezoning or to the Board of Adjustment for a variance to build 300 units with no retail and no road improvements just down the road. So at the end of the day, the mayor used a more descriptive adjective of what this is, but this is the best of a bad situation when it comes to the pilot program. I've sat in many meetings with council members and with the mayor who have said forcefully and directly to developers that they will not consider a pilot program for a residential proposal prospectively. I know that's been asked about within the community as well.
Can you just say that one more time? And let me just phrase the question. Will this set a precedent for future developers?
I'm not the attorney at this day,
No.
so I'll defer to Mr. Locke.
No, it will not.
I would agree with the mayor. It sets no precedent.
That is all I have on this topic, Council President.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. DePiero.
Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2019:01.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, so the floor is open to speak on the Stanberry ordinance only. Thank you.
Mary Przicki, 273 Marcella Road. You talk about a precedent. I've sat there and heard about R&D when they wanted to put 666 units if we didn't do it their way. And now we are hearing from Stanberry, who were saying, oh, don't do it my way, it's 888. I'm just as sick and tired of coming to council meetings and planning board meetings where the developer gets the upper hand. And if you're telling me this isn't going to set a precedent, the precedent was already set by Waterview. And now it's going to be set by Stanberry, and you know darn well what the people who have land on Littleton Road by Route 10 think, that they're in an area in need of a redevelopment too. And they are planners, and they will hold us like this, and we will not get what's best for this town.
I think, Mary, what they were referring to as precedent was the pilot.
Correct.
That if there was...
But what I'm telling you...
Mary, I need you to, into the mic.
What I'm telling you is, though, every developer comes with an angle, and this is theirs,
believe
and
me.
this angle will be the next developer who comes, who wants to
I
build.
totally agree.
We all
I totally
know.
agree with you. This is on the courts. I mean, this
Yes.
is not us. None of us want this at all. It's the courts basically
Yeah, and
ramming
that-
it down
and-
our throats.
And that's what, I mean, that's why you get so frustrated as a citizen, and you come up here every day hoping for the best for your town, and it doesn't happen because the developers overrule, and that's greed.
Mrs. Przicki, let me tell you that the council president could not be more correct. The reason we are here today and every other municipality in New Jersey is in the same predicament is because the legislature has failed us, and they have kicked this issue into the judicial system, and it doesn't matter what governor it was, doesn't matter which party he or she was from, they kicked the can down the road, it entered into the courts, and the courts do not take into account the items that I listed earlier. The schools, the traffic, the services, the utilities, they don't take it into account.
I understand all of that, but I guarantee you that when GlaxoSmithKline comes up, and when the other Matt Calley comes up, they will come up with the same storyline. And yes, the legislature in Trenton, when you look at who controls it, you better think about how you vote.
Nicholas Homiak again, Lake Hiawatha. If the criteria is affordable housing, what is the lure of the retail? And if the retail doesn't play out, then how does that affect? Is there any loopholes in this somewhere down the line where they won't even have to be obligated to their pilot because their development somehow overall failed? When you say it's an alternative of 800 units or 441 units, without knowing what our affordable housing obligation is, or if we can hold our ground and not be forced, if that site can hold 800 units, and then we can get somehow more than the 20% or a maximum number from any developer to meet our obligation, strategically at one site, we should not fall for this retail, and they're improving the road, but the people that are living there are going to still be on the road. So all they're doing is accommodating their development site. I don't see it as an improvement. I just see it as, I don't know, like, if they have all this money to do all this work, but they don't want to pay taxes like a regular entity would, it just seems fishy. But once again, without knowing the numbers, and I don't see anything wrong with, if it has to be 800 units, then let it be 800 units. And up the percentage of the affordable housing. So, you know, it's the system is taking us all down. Nobody wants to do anything for everybody. Everybody wants to make a buck. It's ridiculous. And if I may say something to these people that think the senior citizens are going to be forced out by this or any other project, you can make up to $86,000 a year and put in for a tax freeze if you're 65 or over. So all these belly acres up here, about $5 a month, their taxes going up or something, you put in for